Welcome to BioInsights, the show where we're going to discuss science and what we try to get to the signal from all the noise into better decisions. I'm the host, Marcelo, today, and we'll discuss a topic where we'll be talking about the future of computing. Let me ask you a question. What if the next giant leap in AI isn't powered by silicon, but by a living human brain cell? It sounds like it's sci-fi, but it's really moving fast. Consider what we're seeing now in supercomputing, like HPE frontier burners. To power those types of solutions, we have demand about 21 megawatts. Your brain does far more with 20 watts, and it's about the electricity of a dim light bulb. That's roughly a million-fold efficiency gap there. This is the case for a new frontier, which is being discussed today as wetware computing. It's a hybrid system that harnesses living cells and hardware and software to create a biological processor. So today we're going to unpack this. We're going to talk about how brain organoids work and how researchers make them compute, and consciousness and ethics questions we can't really ignore, but we'll talk about that today in our podcast with Dr. Kurtys, who's the founder and CEO of ECA Ltd. And a strategic advisor at FinalSpark, a neuroscientist by training, a PhD with over 20 plus publications, a postdoctoral work at King's College London, and she's transitioned in 2018 to commercializing deep tech spanning marketing partnerships and fundraising. She's previously founded mental wellness apps like Stink, and really helps lead through science evidence-based breakthroughs using biology and computing platforms to the market. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
So to get us started, what are brain organoids and what do they have that 2D cultures don't?
So brain organoids are 3D structures, such as little round blobs. They have around half millimeter diameter, and they are built from living neurons. So the same building blocks as we have in our brains. Sometimes they are called brain in the dish, but I think it's a mistake, because they are very different from the brain. And even if we make some complex structures of living neurons in the lab, it's not the same like a brain. So I think it's a little bit a misconception. So organoids, which we have in our lab at FinalSpark, they consist of around 10,000 neurons each. And what we do with them, we put them on electrodes. And as you mentioned, we try to build computer using these living neurons. So we try to program neurons by sending them signals through the electrodes, and also we measuring the response. So that's in a nutshell an organoid.
Sounds really like it's a sci-fi movie, like I mentioned before. But
yes,
why does going from 21 megawatts to about 20 watts matter for the future of AI?
Well, it matters because we see today that the amount of energy which AI is using is really growing very rapidly. And we can still manage this, but in the future, we can expect it can become a problem. So there are two possible solutions. One is alternative energy sources, and the second is alternative computing. And we believe in the second road to build computers which will be much more energy efficient, so that we can use AI cheaper.
So building a tech stack with alternatives so we have sustainability in mind.
Yes.
Yeah. So currently, some of the applications are that I've read were about Pong and what kind of learning behaviors are realistic in a near term. What are some
Yes.
things that are in the near term available?
So I think this is generally not really short-term project. So we expect to build a computer in around 10 years. which is quite a long timeline. There are some applications which are short term, like for example, you could use what we have today in the lab for drug development, because you could use this for drug testing on neurons, for example, the setup which we have. But that's not really what we want to achieve. What we want to achieve is a living computer with a processor built from living neurons. That's a very ambitious goal, and we expect it will be ready in around 10 years. We want to use it, we hope to be able to use it for generative AI. Everything what we know today about neurons is based on the living brain. So based on how brain is working, we can have some ideas on what would be good for biocomputer. And this is why we believe that generative AI will be a great use case for living neurons, but it will be a long time until it will be ready.
Yeah, so there is some time there, but how do MEAs
Yes.
talk to these neurons? How do you decode the intent and back out?
So as mentioned, we put neurons on electrodes so that we can send them electrical signals, and we can also receive response. So neurons are producing spikes, which can be measured as electrical signal. In reality, these are just differences in ions, plus and minus, which are going around the membrane of the neuron. So that's why it's spiking. But it can be measured as a change in voltage. So it can be measured with the electrodes. And people do this since hundreds of years. They try to measure neurons, but also some other living tissue, like also muscles. So that's nothing new. It's called the field of neurophysiology. But what is new here is that we do this because we want to program them. So be able to send them some input and get the output which makes sense. That's the objective of the project. And for now, actually, you ask about the coding.
Yeah.
So this is actually the big challenge in neuroscience and also biocomputing, our field, that nobody really knows how neurons encode information. And this is a huge problem. So today, what we want to achieve actually is learning in vitro. So how neurons learn, that the connections between neurons will change and they will behave differently. So they will have different spikes. And we would like to be able to control this. And that would be great achievement already if we can somehow master the behavior of neurons in vitro, change the behavior. However, how to encode is even more difficult because nobody really knows. We know a lot about spikes, how they process the spikes, how they process the electrical signals, but we do not know what this spike really means. And actually, this is the same in the human brain. Today, we don't have really the methods to read the brain. You can have some classification based on the activity of your brain, but you cannot really figure out what someone is thinking about without having some previous knowledge. So you cannot translate spikes, for example, to words, what we hope to do in the future, as today is done with the computers. Today, the signal in the computer can be translated through 0 and 1s to some meaningful signal for us. So that's what we still are striving. It's a big challenge.
So let's talk a little bit about FinalSpark. How did you guys solve keeping the organoid stable for months? Because I know that's kind of significant in technology development.
Yes, we put a lot of effort. We have a very strong engineering expertise, and we have some patents also for this. So it's all about how to keep the condition of neurons as close as possible to this, which is in the human brain, in the natural condition, let's say. And this is always a challenge in the research when you put cells in the dish, because you have materials, for example, some plastic or even metals, which are not what usually neurons encounter in the living body. So this is always difficult. And we have to always try to use all the materials as much biocompatible as possible. And also we have to be able to provide them nutrients in such a way that they always have supply, and that it's not too fast, not too slow. A lot of little things matter. So yes, so it's still a work in progress. We would like to be able to keep neurons even for 100 years, but it's still a long long way for us, work in progress.
Yeah, it's a significant evolution that I was reading up
Yes.
on. I was interested to see that. Where do you where do the chemical rewards fit into a protocol like this?
Yes, so we do also chemical rewards. You are absolutely right. So neurons, in the body, they are working through, through different signals. It's all actually chemistry, even the spikes. And they also can detect some substances, like, for example, dopamine or serotonin. And this affects how we feel. And why it affects how we feel? Because it affects our neurons. And generally in neuroscience, dopamine is considered a reward. It's involved in many reward systems in learning. There are a lot of models on how animals or human are learning. Even for these models are also translated often in digital world. For example, you have reinforcement learning, which is many algorithms are based on how dopamine reward is working, or some other rewards in the brain. So, yes, so we consider dopamine is kind of reward, but here we take away a lot of steps which we have in the human body, but we take only the neuron and the signal. So basically, neuron gets dopamine. That should be considered the reward. So that means what we hope, that it will reinforce the connections. Because the same as we learn, yes, we do something often through trial and error. And if we do something wrong, we get results we didn't want, then we feel we shouldn't repeat it again. When we do something good, we are happy. And that happiness, this reward, is one of the mechanisms because our neurons get dopamine. So these connections which are responsible for this behavior are reinforced because all the information in neurons is saved through the connections between the neurons. So yes, so we try to use this mechanism in the lab. It's still actually debatable. There is no consensus in the research what is really reward, what is punishment for in vitro model. But we believe strongly in this, and we try to reward neurons when they do what we wanted. So, for example, we do very simple experiments. For example, we try to simulate neurons, and we want that they increase the number of spikes. So if they do this, if we measure increase of the number of spikes, then we release dopamine. If not, we don't. So we want to make them go in that direction. So that's one of the very simple, as you see, experiments which we are trying to do.
It sounds like my life story, behavior modification.
Yes.
Uh, so let's discuss a little bit about the ethics and the laws that are obviously probably come to mind with any listener right
Yes.
now. How should we think about um, the consciousness versus maybe the sentence in this context?
So I'm a scientist, of course. So I'm not really maybe competent to talk about because this is very philosophical topic. I personally think it's a nonsense, but there are many people who disagree with that. So the discussion is open, and this is why actually we reach out to philosophers to help us to answer these questions. But I can tell you that consciousness, I think it's such a pop culture topic, which just, it's stimulating our imagination. It's like, when you go to read gossip, for example, about celebrities, it's something easy to spark some emotion. So I think this is why we see a lot of discussion about this in general public. However, when you talk with philosophers, actually, they see that there are a lot of ethical problems, of course, because every new technology is bringing some questions, absolutely, and it's very important to answer them. However, philosophers see a little bit different question, but it's important to address everything, what public thinks and what philosopher thinks, and we hope soon there will be some study about this. We try to promote this topic of biocomputing among philosophers, and we hope that soon there will be some publications we can rely on.
I think with AI, with singularity, sentience, it's
Yes,
do they have a feeling? What's the right consent
absolutely.
model too? Especially with your being an organoid, you got donors, right? That are
Yes.
when you use this.
Mhm.
So what's that right consent model, and when you use this to evolve. And that's kind of something that I think is another portion of
Mhm.
this discussion. Being a scientist, I completely
Yes.
respect that.
Hmm.
I think
Yes. Hmm.
those are some things that I think are always
Hmm.
ongoing discussions. And is it, I guess the follow-up question is the capability, as the capabilities grow, what guardrails should be non-negotiable?
Yes, this is the same question as with digital AI, as you said, and it's indeed difficult. We are always open actually to follow what philosophers will tell us. Today, of course, it doesn't really matter because we don't have any intelligence, but in the future, indeed. I think that we often, when we see the traits of human behavior, we think it's a human like us. So you can see this already with ChatGPT and other LLM models. And actually, it's a growing business because they are not only useful for work, but there are a lot of new applications where LLMs are friends or even partners of people. So we really start to see human traits in them. We believe they are like us. Doesn't mean they're really conscious, but it's what we believe. It's in human nature. I think even, I have a cat at home. I also believe she understands me because I think she's so smart, of course. And I think it's a human thing that we believe that if we interact with something, we believe that this other thing is also, like us, conscious. So I think it's absolutely normal. And when you talk about the rules, it's really difficult to say. I think it's a challenge with every technology. Also, people who work on digital AI, they have the same problem because there is no way today to prove that there is any software can be conscious or not. We don't really have methods. So I think it's still ongoing work. But for sure, when we work with living tissue, we always have to be open that maybe in the future we build something what didn't exist before, and maybe for this reason we need new rules, but you cannot predict this. So I think that's the challenge, that uh, ethics is going always a little bit behind because you cannot really say anything until you don't see the creation. New computer, maybe new software. It's really difficult. We can have some assumptions, but we don't really know. So I think it's ongoing, and I cannot tell you which kind of rules will be non-negotiable, but for sure, if there will be some reasons to follow, some rules to follow, then we do this because we want that our work is accepted by society. We want to do something good, of course. So we are always open, but it's, I think, not possible to predict. Like with digital also, when we will have even more intelligent models, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge is we're going down. People say it's going to take some time, right? The
Yes,
structure though is that or the outcomes that we're seeing now are that
yes,
it doesn't take that long. We're seeing things in a
yes,
shorter deliverables happen in a shorter period of time. Uh,
yes, but still, thinking whether it's conscious or not, any algorithm is just impossible to answer, I think, today. But one thing I wanted to mention, I always say this when people ask me about these challenges. I think people often overlook that the biggest problem, in my opinion, in AI today, and it doesn't matter if it's biocomputer or digital, the biggest problem is how to make sure that the AI will be on our side always and will be benefiting us, not against us. There are a lot of theories. They are also very theoretical because it's hard to predict what will happen. But what if one day AI will be much more intelligent than us and can play against us? So I think this is a much more important problem: how to make sure that it will serve us, not go against.
Sounds like a movie. But
Yes.
the biggest challenge that I see is that we've already gone down the
Mhm.
path of all these technologies.
Yes, of course.
So
I think we cannot stop the technology. If it's possible to build something, someone will build for sure. And if not in this place on the world, then in another. But I don't think you can stop technology.
I
Yes.
think what we need to understand is how can it better serve our society in a meaningful way,
Yes,
that it's not going
absolutely.
to drastically change, and that everyone is included
Mhm.
in this whole
Mhm.
process. Um, what are some of the unique cases that you're seeing now with FinalSpark being adopted with other researchers?
Well, our lab is really special. because, as I mentioned, neurons are on electrodes. So electrodes, this is digital. And all the electrodes are connected also to hardware and the computer. So all the experiments which we do in our lab are actually through the writing on the computer. Python code is a programming language. So you don't have to do this in our lab. You can do this also remotely from anywhere in the world, because it's just a code which can be executed automatically in our lab. And this is why we invited researchers from all over the world to collaborate with us on this very special project, because we have this really special hardware which nobody else to our knowledge has in the same setup. So you can do experiments on living neurons and how they process information. And from the 34 universities which submitted some idea, we have selected 9. And also on the way, we selected some artists also to give them opportunity to do something interesting for free in our lab, which is a bit of investment for us because it's still quite expensive to run the lab. But we want to have this, more vivid collaboration, that something happens. We, for example, don't publish so many papers. We focus more on patents because we are a startup. So if someone publish a paper or do some artwork, is actually really good for us. To show that you can do something with the field today. So, and later actually what happened, even more interesting, is that private clients started to write to us, very different, from very different industries, large corporations and small startups and even individuals. So we started to rent our lab also. We have now subscription. So this is really special and surprising, actually. We didn't expect to make some revenue already, but it's of course really small compared to what we want to achieve with biocomputers, but we are happy that it proves some interest in the field.
And based on your other experiences and other
Yes.
company experiences that you helped develop, what are some learning experiences that you've learned from those launches that you're doing differently today with FinalSpark?
I think every technology is different. What is special about FinalSpark is that this is very niche topic still. So, for example, if we rent access to our lab, this is very, very specific product. Not everyone would use it. Not everyone would be, let's say, suitable for that to be our client. And I think it's still a challenge actually to figure out. And so yeah, so I think it always depends on the product. In this case, this is really niche product. So you have to be very careful how you promote it. You cannot sell it to anyone. So yes, so it's for sure much different than, for example, mobile application, which is kind of like a general use, which anyone could understand and could use easily. Because to use our neural platform, you have to, for example, code in Python. That's the absolute minimum. And it's helpful if you understand some biology so that it makes sense what you do. So yeah, there are a lot of actually, it's highly technical tool.
And then comparatively, how does this compare to using an AI agent? Is this apples to oranges? How would you position that differently? Obviously, you have let's say a biomedical engineer who does code in Python, who understands biosignals or biomarkers. What would be the difference? Obviously, it's besides skill set that you've just explained to us, what are some other differences that complement what we're talking about?
I think you can use agents digital, because agents, all the agents we have today for automation are digital. So you can use agent for doing experiments in our lab also. It can help you in coding, for example. And so I think this is just additional skill, which is very helpful. And I generally believe a lot in automation. I use a lot AI in my work, although I'm not an engineer. I'm actually more working with words than code. But here AI is also very helpful. So I think it's always, it's just additional tool. Agent is additional tool, which can improve your outcome when you are doing your experiments. It's not obligatory, but it's helpful.
So what are some next things that you might want to talk about here training protocols, donor consent. What's some benchmarks that you might want to talk about here?
We have very simple plans. We always keep stuff simple. So our current objective is learning in vitro, as mentioned. And currently we are self-funded by the founders, Fred Jordan and Martin Kutter. These are two entrepreneurs from Switzerland. They have already another company, which is digital and very successful. So this is how they finance. Through this other company, they finance FinalSpark. So this is a dream, actually, because they have full control over the company. However, that means we don't have so much money. And we are a team of only 6 people. So everything is going really slow. So this is why we are talking to investors. We are seeking 50 million Swiss francs for this really revolutionary technology, which can change a lot in computing in general. And we predict it will be very profitable once it works. So for now, we go very slow, but we assume that with investor, we can solve the problem of learning in vitro in around 2-3 years. And once we solve this problem, the next challenge will be advanced algorithms. So how to match the performance of a digital computer. Because what we want actually is to replace some of the tasks which digital computer is doing with biocomputer so that it's cheaper. That's what we want. We don't want to build some totally new capabilities. And so this will be advanced algorithm, another goal, and then later the scaling. So we would like to be able to build huge structures of living neurons, even 100 meters long, because we are not restricted by the size of the skull, like in the human brain. We can build something much bigger. And we believe that is just engineering challenge. We just have to figure out how to keep it alive and how to build it. But the final outcome in around 10 years will be bioserver, which will be accessible remotely like today cloud computing, and you will be able to access artificial intelligence cheaper.
Now that's the gap from 21 megawatts to 20 watts,
Yes.
right? That's
yes,
kind of,
absolutely.
that's the biggest thing that stuck with me because that's the biggest challenge right now. So we can't
Yes.
we can't be able we're going down a path where there's not enough energies to be able to provide AI with all the
Yes.
solutions. So we're seeing this level of competition in the market space today. So you know, what I'll make sure is I'll make sure to include your links, your company URL, as well as any other material that you want to share with me. I want to thank our listeners, and I want to remind them that it's our responsibility to really remember that we're trying to address tech stacks that will help us address sustainability in a meaningful way. So
Yes.
thanks again for
Thank you too.
really, I've really enjoyed this process. I've learned a lot from Wetware computing. It's, for me, I think, a biomarker signal that people measure in the biomedical engineering space. And I think from a commercial standpoint, it exactly will bring many great solutions like you're talking about. Instead of, we're not going to replace anything, it's just going to complement and make things a little bit better from a sustainability standpoint. So thank you again, Doctor.
Thank you so much also for a nice discussion. Thank you.
Okay.